Hi, everybody. This is Jimmy, and you're reading with Jimmy. This is our 10-minute quick take of Henry David Thoreau's Civil Disobedience, subtitled One Voice, One Conscience, One Revolution. Are you ready? Just get my clock here. We're going to go over 10 minutes, ladies and gentlemen. All right, welcome. What if I told you that one man sitting in a jail cell because he wouldn't pay a tax inspired generations to resist injustice, not with violence, but with conviction? Sound familiar? Henry David Thoreau's Civil Disobedience is a fiery essay that dares to ask, what do you do when your government is wrong? Huh? Welcome to Reading with Jimmy's Quick Takes, where we break down literature's loudest voices in under 10 minutes so that you can think more deeply, read more boldly, and stand up a little straighter. You're on my website. This is 10 minutes before we can read together. So let's explore how a quiet refusal became a global call to action, shall we? Ready? So what's the story? Well, the setting is Concord, Massachusetts in 1849. Thoreau is simply living and writing and reflecting, and then he refuses to pay a tax that supports slavery and the war. The Mexican-American War is underway. Slavery is still legal, so Thoreau wants no part of funding it. He decides to take a stand. This has nothing to do with me. So what's the plot? You can't really call it a plot because it's an essay, right? It's written in the first person, Henry David Thoreau's voice. Thoreau is arrested for refusing to pay a poll tax. So while he's in jail overnight, he reflects on the relationship between individual conscience and the government. You have a conscience, I have a conscience. What's our relationship of that conscience to the government? And then he argues in the essay that when laws are unjust, especially laws supporting slavery or war, people have a moral duty to resist. Do you believe that? Do you believe that? And if you do believe that, how far are you willing to go? This is not violently and not rebelliously, calm, purposeful disobedience. So what's the deal? Well, it's not a story just about an individual who decides to go to jail for not paying taxes. And by the way, spoiler alert, somebody pays the tax for him and so he can get out of jail. It's how far are you willing to go for what you believe? Thoreau was a transcendentalist. You can look that up. But it's someone who believed in the primacy of the individual, the power of your conscience, and the sacredness of truth. This essay is about what is the truth. We all know slavery is wrong. War probably is wrong, but war is all around us, right? He wasn't just an armchair philosopher. He walked the walk and talked the talk. Out to Walden Pond, that's where he lived and what he preached. He lived, he decided he has nothing to do with society. So he went to Walden Pond to reflect. An interesting guy. Civil disobedience wasn't a call to chaos. Let's burn things. No. That's not what he's talking about. It was a call to integrity. And if your government commits injustice, that you just don't vote differently, you refuse to participate. What would happen? Lysistrata is a book on this website where the Greek women in Greece decide to say, enough is enough with war. We're done with it. And we're going to deny sexual pleasure to our men until they stop the war. Very interesting story. So what are the themes of disobedience? Conscience over law. Thoreau argues, and you're going to have to figure this out when you read it with Jimmy, that our conscience is a higher thing than the law. Do you believe that? Do you believe your conscience should overrule a law? If the law is wrong, we must answer to something deeper. He was a man of his beliefs, and he was willing to go to jail for that. Reminds us a lot of Martin Luther King and other people, Gandhi, who's willing to take it to the metal, to the mat, right? Nonviolent resistance. He lays the groundwork for peaceful protest. Gandhi, as I mentioned, Mandela, they all built on Thoreau's idea. of nonviolent objections. Minimal government. What's Thoreau's most famous line? The government is best which governs least. In other words, if you look at the prior slide, the best government is no government. Well, how the hell does that work? He's not anti-government, he's anti-injustice, but yet he doesn't want anything to do. Do we have a right, if we live in a society, to withdraw from the government? That's been done quite a number of times in this country, in all countries. He's not vague. If your government supports slavery or war, you are silently complicit and you're part of the problem if you don't stand up. One person's refusal, no matter how small, can be a spark, according to Thoreau. Do you believe that? So why does this essay, this beautiful essay, matter today? So it was written almost 200 years ago. Well, we read classics on this website because we want to see how other people lead their lives, but they're classics because they really have a profound message, and they tell us their literature is language charged with meaning. And Thoreau, you'll see in my analysis, I don't really think he's a great writer, but that one idea he had is worth spending the time to think about. Unjust laws still exist. Do you believe that? Of course, you must believe that. Look around you. Civil rights to climate justice, authoritarian regimes. His message is still a blueprint. If you don't want that, you have to say something. See something, say something, and do something. He was willing to go to jail. Are you willing to go to jail for your beliefs? Thoreau challenges the idea that democracy is just ballots. It's also action. It's not just voting. It's taking action, and in his case, nonviolent action. Silence is equal to consent. If you don't say anything, you've heard this before, you're guilty too. If you disagree with your government, but you go quietly along, blah, 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 Thoreau says you're complicit in that act, right? There's a lot of things going on with government today. And you know what I'm talking about, ladies and gentlemen. Conscience needs courage. Do you have the courage of your convictions? How far are any of us willing to go? There's a great scene in the movie The Untouchables where Sean Connery is talking to Kevin Costner, by the way, his first movie, and he's playing Elliot Ness. And he says, how far are you willing to go to get Capone? And Kevin Costner, the Untouchable, says, the government guy says, as far as I can within the law. And Sean Connery says, good, that's good. Now, how far are you willing to go? And Kevin Costner looks at him confused. And Sean Connery says, well, let me explain. If they come at you with a knife, you come at them with a gun. If they put one of yours in the hospital, you put one of theirs in the morgue. That's the Chicago way. I'm not suggesting that here. Thoreau's not suggesting that for sure. But if you believe what Thoreau writes in this essay, when you read it with Jimmy, he's saying that your conscience is higher than obeying the government rules and laws. You really have to think about this. Because if you're in a society and you believe that you can do what your conscience tells you to do and not follow along with society, ladies and gentlemen, I'm afraid chaos will erupt. It's like what Humpty Dumpty said. Words mean what I want them to mean. And Ellis says, what do you mean? You can't just make a word mean anything you want them. He says, sure I can, which is to be the master. So if you define words according to your definitions, but nobody else shares your definitions, guess what? There's no communication. So moral resistance isn't loud. It's just lasting. This is a 200-year-old essay that talks about nonviolent objections, taking a stand, doing something, standing up to bullies sometimes in the schoolyard when you're a kid. Calling all raiders. That's civil disobedience in 10 minutes. One essay, one jail cell, one refusal that shook the world. This had a profound effect. And I invite you to read it with me. You're on my website now. You might as well turn to it and let's read it together. And then I'm going to analyze it. Watch for the full breakdown. You can go to YouTube as well. So I want to leave you with this question before we go. What are you participating in just because it's easier not to resist? What are you doing just because it's easier not to say anything? I'll just ignore it. You see something, I'll just ignore it. Right? Thanks for joining this Quick Takes. I really appreciate it. I'm going to leave you with this. This is what you'll see when you're on the website with me or on YouTube. The YouTube is the QR code there. I read the story in 2 parts, an hour and a 45-minute, because it's a long essay, but don't give up. I mean, it's a very good essay, and I didn't want to spend 2 hours reading to you, so I divvied it up into 2 parts. Then there's an hour and 45-minute analysis, a complete analysis, where I take it apart, word by word, paragraph by paragraph, and help you understand the true meaning of Henry David Thoreau's civil disobedience. Thanks for this quick take. Thanks for spending 10. Let's go on and read it together, please. Now, don't object. Just read it together, and then you decide if what Thoreau is saying is right or not. Thanks for being here. See you soon.